Black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blacker than black, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blacker than black, and I'm black, y'all. I'm blickety black, blacker than black, black.
What's up, all my movie loving maniacs? It's your boy Bankful B, and welcome back to the Lassiter Black History Month movie review special. The special where I watch nothing or mostly black cinema that I've either never seen before or revisit. And in this case, I am celebrating two anniversaries. One celebrating a 20th anniversary, and the other one celebrating a 10th anniversary. So I just decided to cram reviews of both into one just to speed things up because we're nearing the end of the month and this is one of, or in this case, two of the last reviews I have left on the schedule. So let's get into it with my review of Coach Carter, which is celebrating 20 years, and Focus, which is celebrating 20 years. Coach Carter is based on a true story about Coach Ken Carter that turns things around for a high school basketball team in Richmond, California. Does he whip them into shape to be successful on the court, but he also gets them to be more successful in the classroom. For as long as I can remember, this has always been one of, if not my favorite, basketball movie for a number of things. Like, it's in a way, it's not your typical basketball movie. Samuel L. Jackson and just the whole vibe and structure of this movie and what the movie is about is what always stood out to me about this movie and why it's one of, if not my favorite basketball movies. Watching it with adult eyes, I love it just as much, if not more, than I did 20 years ago when I first watched this movie for the first time. I think Samuel Jackson is definitely a big part of that. It's crazy. I had just seen him in the Super Bowl and then seen him here, and I think to me this was also just one of those movies where I saw Samuel Jackson and it dawned on me for the first time that, like, Sam Jackson as an actor, he is not above anything, but he's not below anything either. Because up until this point, back in 2005, I've only seen him in stuff like, let's say, Star Wars and Pulp Fiction, but seeing him in this where he's just kind of a little bit more grounded, it made me realize, like, okay, Samuel Jackson, he can be a diverse actor. You can put him in a genre type movie, but then you put him in something more dramatic and he will elevate it to whatever the movie needs it to be. And that's exactly, at least to me, this is what Samuel Jackson did in this movie. It's like he lended some type of gravitas that this movie needed because, let's be real, Coach Carter, it is a little derivative of other sports movies, let alone basketball movies, but it's just the angle that he approached this character because Coach Carter, again, he not only wants his players to excel on the court, but he also wants them to excel in the classroom and wants better futures for them because he gets into this whole speech about like how he went to the same school they did and most of the people that he played basketball with, they either ended up dead or in jail, and he's just trying to change that narrative. He wants to evoke change. And to me, Samuel Jackson, he did a great job in portraying that and illustrating that. Watching all the adversity that he had to go through within this movie, from the parents and the expectations he expected for his student athletes. Someone that did go through high school sports, I can definitely relate to those type of expectations from the coaches. He ultimately was able to get his players to see what he was saying, and even right down to the last game in the movie, hey, they lost. Same ending they had in Friday Night Lights. I like a sports movie where the team, they're just successful throughout the movie, and then they lost at the last game. The difference here is they became better. They went from boys to men, as Sam Jackson said in the movie. Because when it wasn't just the point, it was just getting them to excel and rise above what they can do. Gotta give glory to some of the other cast in this movie, particularly Rob Brown, in which there's a storyline between him and his girlfriend, played by Ashanti, the beautiful Ashanti, I may add. But anyways, in this movie, she is pregnant, and then she's going back and forth with him about their future after high school, and he thinks that basically her being pregnant is going to bring him down and excelling in basketball and having a future, and then she's angry about it, but then, spoiler alert, she does have an abortion, and she ultimately gets on the same page. Not saying it's right though, but it's just like, but if anything, I'll say like that whole storyline, to me, that was probably the weakest part, but hey, if it got Ashanti acting performance, then hey, so be it. Rick Gonzalez, who, as far as the players go, he's probably had the best story or side story within this movie. And seriously, Rick Gonzalez, where has he been? I ain't seen him in anything lately. But Rick Gonzalez, he plays Timo, in which he's the one that basically he wants to be out in the streets, and he's a bit of a hothead. But then once he sees the progress that his team is making, he decides to go back and he does everything. And then for what the things to change, and then he sees his cousin gets killed, and then it finally dawns on him, and then that's when he gives the what's it called, the our deepest fear speech in the movie, which was also used in the Kill and the Bee. Note, I definitely forgot Channing Tatum was in this movie. This is one of his earliest performance. Wow. Crazy. If you told me 20 years from now that this guy would play Gambit in an X-Men related movie, I would have laughed in your face. 20 years ago, yeah, the music that was played in this movie definitely had me feeling old as shit. Like, 20 years ago was so long. I want to go back. This was probably one of my favorite rewatches of 2025. I totally forgot how much I liked this movie. This movie kept me engaged even with adult eyes, and that's why I'm going to give Coach Carter the hard eyes emoji. Celebrating 10 years is Focus, which is a con artist movie. It is about Nikki, played by Will Smith, and he takes Jess, played by Margot Robbie, under her wing and teaches her the art of conning people and stealing from people and pulling off the perfect cons or whatever. And they get in a bit of a love scuffle, and then things happen. Even though this movie is 10 years old, I have a lot of fond memories with this movie because it came out in 2015, which, generally speaking, was a pretty solid and fun year for movies that I remember. In fact, I remember I was going to see this movie at an AMC theater, but the movie started late. They was having projector problems, and they started handing out free reimbursement tickets, but ultimately the movie did start. But I also remember this movie coming out after Earth, which, at least in my opinion, is Will Smith's worst movie, and also coming off the heels of the announcement of both Will Smith and Margot Robbie being cast as Deadshot and Harley Quinn in Suicide Squad a year before Suicide Squad came out. And of course, Margot Robbie, she had just came out with The Wolf of Wall Street, so I'm just curious about her career trajectory at that point. So this movie was just a nice little movie to check out their chemistry. Overall, I remember liking this movie 10 years ago, and I still like it today. Like, I don't usually vibe with movies about con artists. In fact, if I'm being honest, the Ocean's 11 trilogy, I'm not really a big fan of. But for some reason, this one just worked for me because the first half of the movie, which a lot of people, they like the first half, but the second half is where it kind of falls for people. It's a little uneven, and I can see their point, but maybe that's just the point. You're losing sight of focus of what the movie is about during the second half that you love the first one so much. But the first half, it basically shows you the ins and out of conning people and how to pickpocket people. This movie just breaks it down in a way where it just makes sense. And Will Smith, he is just charismatic as hell in this movie. I loved him in this movie. It was a nice change of pace because it was nice to see him out of his element, out of doing a big blockbuster and put him in something a little bit more smaller, and he will still elevate it to something that just tailored to him. And Margot Robbie, I remember this is the second thing I ever saw her in, and she was great in this movie, and she had good chemistry with Will Smith. She was basically the right yin and yang to him. I gotta give glory to the cinematography in this movie. Like, why can't movies be shot like this anymore? Like, I'm telling you, rewatch this movie and you tell me how beautiful this movie is, especially for a movie about con artists. I know this movie technically isn't a black movie, but it does star a black actor, and that's Will Smith. So I'm counting it in. And plus, like I said, this movie's celebrating 10 years, so I'm decided to kill two birds in one stone. I think when this movie came out, some people were a little mixed on it, but 10 years later, I think you should definitely give it a rewatch because I think it definitely still holds up, and especially between the way movies are made today and what Will Smith's career is today. This, like I said, this movie was a nice change of pace for him at the time, and I definitely recommend you see it if you haven't already. And as far as, the acting duo between Will Smith and Margot Robbie, this is definitely better than Suicide Squad. The fact that I enjoyed all this movie, I still gotta admit, the movie is a little uneven between the first and the second half, but I still enjoyed the movie all around. But I'm gonna give Focus a mid hard eyes emoji. So much for watching. Have you seen both Coach Carter and Focus? Either or, both of them. Either way, let me know what you think of both films in the comments section below. This is your boy Bagful B of The Lassiter Factor. Stay safe, wash your hands, and be on the lookout for at least one more review that's part of the Lassiter Factor Black History Month movie review special. Peace.